Yes. Ready?
Ready.
Hello. How you doing? Today is Thursday, and we kind of started. We call it kind of podcast. We don't know how to call this section, but we've been talking about things that hopefully help you to learn something new or inspire you to do something better. Whatever. We want to have a purpose to every single post we post or whatever we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this section we wanted to say that it is mainly hard to us to do it because we have so many questions from our fans and from people. And one of those questions that is we constantly are listening to all the time is which tips do you have for people that want to play music? People that are new in music, they want to pick the guitar, or they're just already doing an artistic work of some kind. What would be your best advice? And so it's a small little question, but really requires a big answer. So we're gonna try to be brief here and give you our best, the best advice that worked for us. That doesn't necessarily needs to work for you, but at least to kind of listen to our experiences and everything. That might help you. So one of the first things that let me ask Rod, because
Yes.
then I'm gonna be the one who's going
And you're
to
going
speak
to
here. So
interview me?
Rod, just
Yeah.
be brief
Yes.
on your answers, and what would
Yes,
be
sir.
your best advice for musicians?
Many, but the best in a way that worked for us was to stick to our guns, to not to do, because remember there was a point where our manager was telling us, have you considered singing? Remember, after that Prince show we saw in
Dublin.
I remember the night, and we both said like we felt almost offended by it,
I
Not because
don't remember.
don't
But
remember?
I remember
I'm
our
surprised.
manager, not that particular
Ah.
moment, but I remember that at some point, people in the industry advised us that it would be best for us to maybe add some voice. Not like we are singing, but maybe adding some voice and lyrics to the music we were doing it. So that I remember that.
Yes, so nothing
Stick
against
to our
exactly
guns.
nothing against singers or whatever, but we had a plan. I mean, we started as an instrumental duo after many years of singing in a band. We wanted to do this, and we felt that was our mission in a way.
So the best advice is stick to your guns. So what basically Rod is saying is that it is important that you know when you find out who you are as an artist, but not in an egotistic way, but in the way that you find what is your voice that you're gonna contribute with music. How is it that you're gonna find that space for creativity? In our case, we came from the metal band. We wanted to be a metal band. We wanted to be like Pantera and Metallica and Megadeth. And this wannabe is good because then you have a sense of purpose. But it's not very good because then you are copying others and not as good.
Exactly.
You know?
And but the question is, when do you know that you have to stop doing that and pursuing that to become your real you?
Well, there is an old saying that this would be another advice. There is an old saying that Socrates used to say that is know thyself, which is know yourself deeply, but deeply. We didn't know anything about any of that at that time. We only make errors, just made mistakes.
Which is fine.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
it's
it's
fine. But if you can avoid them, if you can learn from
well,
other
some
people,
exactly. Yeah.
like it's good, you know. So, and in that sense, I guess knowing yourself for us was to learn in the process of like bitter mistakes and failures, and it just felt like bad because we couldn't make any album with a metal band. We couldn't tour. We were just like completely disappointed.
And it was
But
understandable because we didn't have any uh, paternal or maternal figure in the industry that tell us that this works like this. You know, we had to find for ourselves.
yeah, you need
Yeah.
to kind of fight for yourself, but also it was a moment that we both faced the fact that our band, the metal band, was good, but it wasn't as good
No,
as
of
those
course.
bands. And to be honest with yourself doesn't mean that you are being bad to
To
you.
yourself, yeah.
And then so that's a bitter moment because then our question was, so who the hell we are? And at that time was like, we don't care. We love, what is it that you are? And in our case was playing guitar. Even if we didn't sound like Megadeth, for us playing guitar, just the call to play guitar wherever we were in the world, because we kind of redefined uh, our definition of success at that time.
Yeah.
So we were no longer wanted to copy any of those bands. We said we don't care if we're not famous. We don't care if we're not recognized. We just want to be, we want to be present with two notes and whatever, and then we can play guitar and travel the world.
Yeah.
And that was our new definition of success. So, anything you want to add?
No. I think that's the first. Are we still on the first advice?
I think that will be the capsule. Like the first advice,
That's-
and
ciao.
next week will be the second advice.
No. Just
No, why not? Forget it.
okay.
Keep it short, keep it simple.
No, but I want to ask you because we started with. I mean, this is the advice, right? But a few days ago we had an interview as well, or yeah, it was an interview for this music school in Ireland, and we kind of gave a master class, and they asked a couple of students asked for more advices, and we talked about busking, right, which is another good advice. In this time we're living now, I mean, besides the pandemic situation, busking is not as easy as it used to be, right? Because now, like, there are many buskers around the streets. But would you still advise them to do that, to look for it?
I don't know, because I'm not a busker anymore, and before I was very self-confident of how you do it, how you can do it. Nowadays, even in our time, wasn't as easy. Like in Spain, in Barcelona, we faced the police,
Yeah.
and police took people's instruments like cellos and stuff like this, and they destroyed them. So we were like, just playing like this, just hoping the police wasn't gonna show up. So it wasn't easy, especially some countries. Then you had to, in Paris, I think you had to go for permissions, and when you are busker,
Yeah.
and you don't want to go for
But
permission.
I think now it's easier because now it's easier to apply. That's why there are many. But that's the complexity of busking today is because there are many.
But the point is,
Right.
you don't need essentially nothing outside of you to reach what it is important, musically speaking. At that time, that moment of busking show us a way of how to perform at the highest level, how to perform 100% focus on what we were doing. You can go and busk and just be completely dispersed, and that is not like, you can even, like, let's say if you as an artist, as a new artist, want to do like a busking sessions through social media. That would be your space, and that would be the space that you can use to totally be fully present to the music you are doing or the art you are doing. So you don't need the street. But so the advice is like we learn from the streets and busking days, we learn to really focus and direct our minds to what we were doing at that time. And I think that was the biggest lesson. Like I mean
Yes.
that would be like the advice too.
True. But going just a little back to advice number one, which is stick to your guns. Just a question that came to my head from, I guess a lot of kids have or face this problem. What if sticking to their guns means to keep playing like a band they admire? And because they think this is good, this is good, this is good. Something that is difficult to achieve, like super difficult to achieve, especially nowadays with so many different styles, is to find your own style, your own, style,
Sure.
music. Of course, that's an advice, but it's really wishful thinking in a way because it's very difficult now. I mean, but at least you can try.
Well, I think it becomes difficult because of the way culturally we are wired. You know, the way culturally we'll be directed to achieve and to be somebody and to gain more fans or to gain more whatever. Even you don't need to be a musician. Like the way currently what culture dictates is this basic stuff that success is this, it's only this, and if you don't follow this, then you are completely FUC. I'm very bad at spelling, but you know what I mean. So basically, what we're trying to say here is that, you know, if you are playing and you sound like someone else, that's not necessarily bad. When we both started playing, like there's nothing new under the sun. Everything would sound like other stuff. But when we both started, our first recording kind of demo with it, with music that we wrote, was the one I sent you the other day. That was is called FOC, FOC. That
Which means fire in Catalan.
Catalan. So that album sounds like a lot like a Strong Samfara, because we were listening to that. Strong Samfara is a guitar duo from California, and we were also listening to trio guitar a lot, and that's what we wanted to kind of achieve, that musicality. And so you listen to this album with sound, it's the melodies and everything
Yeah, they
sound a
sound a
little
lot
bit
to
like that.
them.
So and then, but it was part of the process, you know. So, and I think what it is important is like avoid that mentality of achieving success, because that works against you.
And it's, I think these days is kind of old fashioned as well, right? I mean, the definition of success, even more so after this pandemic situation, I mean, it's changing full stop, right? And because people is realizing what matters in reality. And I listen to a lot of interviews and podcasts, as we mentioned before. And I think that successful career that we wanted to have like 20 years ago, I mean, even if we were young again, after like now, it would be different because the world has changed a lot. And I don't think, I mean, we wanted to be famous. I mean, that was when we were kids, right? But wanted to be famous. We wanted to, I mean, everyone wants that. But I think now there are many kids.
Wants that, but that is, you think that, but on the surface.
Yes,
It's
of
not
course.
really, you haven't really analyzed it deeply.
Yes.
When you are, I just want to be famous because you've seen Metallic, I don't know, it's a
Exactly.
documentary with your favorite band. but as it has nothing to do with music.
But what I'm saying is like now there's much more awareness, consciousness about those materialistic goals, and I think that a lot of people is much more aware, and they wouldn't think that that's success. You know, hopefully, I'm not mistaken, but yeah, I think writing your own style is part of the process, and you have to wait, but be very much aware and don't kid yourself if you know you're emulating or trying to copy a band thinking that is your own sound, because that right?
Yeah.
And as a musician it's like, yeah, I mean, this I'm just, because you are going to be influenced by all the time. That's normal and fair, and everyone does that. But at least grab different influences from different styles or different bands, so you can make your own cocktail, your own smoothie, right?
Yes, I mean, I guess that's right. It's good to kind of be eclectic and open to listen to another kinds of all sorts of kinds of musics. Sometimes when you are very young, at least when I was very very young, I used to be very just discriminative with a lot of music. Like to me, it was just like I don't like that.
When you were
It
very
is
young, like a month ago.
No, I have
You've changed recently.
I have changed recently.
Okay.
Okay. But it is important to listen to a lot of kind of music, and you just don't judge so harsh, because when you judge so harsh to other musicians and other work, essentially what happens is all this judgment is one of your voices that is gonna come back to you.
Yes.
And it's not gonna do you a favor wherever you have to play and perform. This voice that is usually directed outside is gonna go against you. So that is why it's so important
Yes.
to abstain of judgment and just keep neutral. If you absolutely hate something, just try to keep it neutral, and then, as you said, just find who you are as a person, and then portray that into your music, if that makes sense. But we are open for your questions, and if we're just making nonsense whatsoever, you can say, oh, I didn't understand this part or whatever. So
Just the last advice, which actually we talked about it with the School of Music in Ireland the other day, is just it's very important to know about the business.
and that's another theme.
It's another thing, but it's still, I mean, as musician, once you start like gigging, playing shows, yeah, look and learn. You know what I read today, yesterday, about Little Richard? He retired for a few years. You know what for? He went back to school. Went back to write, to know how to write and count, because his management and the labels, they were just stealing all the money he was making. He was making loads of money.
Wow.
And he stopped shows and all that, went back to school to learn how to do it. And yeah, so you don't have to start your career and then stop. Better learn before. And yeah, now the industry is changing every day nowadays, but yeah, buy some books.
Yeah, but essentially, yes, I understand that bit, because sometimes you learn on the way, and then you learn after 10 years.
Exactly.
And then, oh, this contract meant this. That's why it didn't happen, this and whatever. And it's so like, whoa, now you learn a lesson. And so if you are starting with something with music and you want to tour or you want to do gigs or whatever, I think it is important. And nowadays there's a lot of information out
It's
there
easier.
to help musicians.
Although the business gets more complicated every day.
There are platforms that are for musicians, like Bandcamp, for instance. That is a musician site that you can post your music directly there. And I think that I'm fan of Bandcamp. They're great, and and they're musician friendly, and I think that is what is important. However, I think we have three themes on these musical tips, so we can divide them in music business tips, we can divide them in music playing tips,
Performance.
and the other the leadership, like mentality and all that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
this is for now everything. I hope you enjoyed our talk. Please send us your questions and we'll be happy to answer them. For the
Or
moment,
to come up with another kind of podcast with those themes that you can suggest.
ciao, bye.
Adios.